Hi, are you waiting for your UK visa application to be approved after having submitted your application through the IDV app? Or are you wondering what are the timelines for getting a visa approved when you submit it through the IDV app? Then you need to watch this video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing a full timeline of visa submission to approval based on my wife's UK visa application through the IDV app in 2020. And I'll also be providing my own personal recommendation if you are considering using the IDV app for a UK visa application. Get strong. Hello and welcome to The Nimble Nomad. My name is Arjun, and on this channel we talk about the tips, tricks and hacks to survive and thrive in the UK. On this channel, I talk about a lot of different topics, all based on life in the UK. And I cover topics right from immigration to personal finance to UK property and a whole lot other. And everything that I talk about is completely based on my own personal experience. So anything that I'm talking about here there's nothing that I haven't personally done myself or experienced it myself. Following my last video where I talked about the escalation process for a UK visa application, there's obviously been an update on my wife's UK visa application after she submitted it through the IDV app. And as promised to a lot of you who asked whether there had been any updates, I'm doing this follow-up video just to provide you a full view of the timelines. Now, before I get into the detail and the main content of this video, I do want to point out that I've done a couple of videos on the IDV app and the IDV app escalation process, and I'll add a link of that above. So if you're interested or are curious or want to know more, then please go ahead and watch that. Now with that done, let's get into it. Now, in case you haven't already guessed it, my wife's UK visa application was finally approved on the 16th of November. So just a couple of days ago. And the main reason I'm making this video is because I know a lot of people have submitted their application and are still waiting for a response or have not had any communication. And what I wanted to do was provide a full recap of the timeline again and just give you a guideline estimation of how long it can possibly take. So I'll bring up the full timeline on the screen and I'll share what's going on. Also, for those of you who are still yet to submit your UK visa application and are considering using the IDV app, I think it's quite an interesting point to go through in terms of timeline. And I'll also be sharing my own recommendation later on in the video, just based on our experience of having used the IDV app. Now, for those of you who are watching this video for the first time, I do want to clarify that my wife was applying for a Tier 2 dependent visa extension. So it wasn't the first time that she had given her biometrics. I know that the position on biometrics for submission through the IDV app has changed. So it's just worth keeping in mind. You may encounter more delays if you're in a different visa category or if you've never submitted biometrics and you're doing it for the first time through the IDV app. Right, so this is basically the full application milestone event and date history, right from start to the end. And as you can see right at the bottom, I've got my wife's visa approval date in there. But there are a couple of things that I do want to highlight just in terms of what happened throughout the process, so that if you are applying for your visa application through the IDV mechanism, then this will give you a good idea of what to expect from a timeline and date perspective. So let's start with that, right? So basically, we submitted the application for my wife, and this is the online application form on the UKVI or VCAS portal on the 15th of July. And then we were trying to find appointments and there was absolutely nothing available at the time. And we just assumed that they would open up the appointment schedule later on. Now, as we're all aware, basically they've now launched this IDV app. So we got this IDV app eligibility notification on the 6th of August, which basically just said to us that my wife is eligible to use the IDV app, and it was specifically because she had used or provided biometrics previously. Now, following that, we then got an invitation on the 29th of August saying that she should now go ahead and download and use the IDV app in order to submit and process her biometrics. We waited for a couple of days because she just needed to bottom out some documentation. And then on the 1st, we submitted the full biometrics and the documents through the app. So that means we uploaded everything into the app and did the biometrics of the face and all of that stuff. And then we just waited. So once you submit this, so if you have submitted it through the IDV app, you will not receive any notification or email or confirmation or anything after you submit it. Zero. There's nothing that you get after you submitted the application on the IDV app. So we waited from the 1st of September and there was nothing. There was no notification or anything coming up. Now, my wife's visa was expiring on the 31st of October. So on the 9th, we got quite stressed out because we were like, okay, there's only a couple more weeks left before my wife's visa expires. So we made an escalation to UKVI on the 9th. And basically, in order to make an escalation, you have to call them up and give them a valid reason as to why you're making an escalation. And so we made an escalation saying that my wife's visa was going to expire and her company was asking her about the visa application and the extension of it in order to be eligible to continue to work, and therefore they escalated it. Now we escalated it, and for some reason they allow you 10 working days to call back. So we called back after 10 working days and they said there had been an email which had been sent, but we never received any email. So we had to make another escalation, but you can only make a second escalation the day after your 10 working days are complete. So we had to do it again. And then finally on the 26th of October, we got a response from UKVI. And the response basically said, well, your application is in the queue and the queue is really long, so just wait. So escalation was pretty pointless in that sense. And then, so we waited again. And on the 30th, the visa was expired and there was no news. Then what happened was on the 14th of November, which is this weekend gone, we received an email from the caseworker, and the caseworker sent us a note saying that you've not paid the right amount of IHS fees. I'll do a separate video on this, but basically we paid only for 1 year's IHS fee because my wife only needs actually 6 more months of extension in order to get her indefinite leave to remain. But basically they said you need to pay for 2 more years. So we paid an additional £800 to them. And we had the final visa approval come through 2 days later. So on the 16th of November, we've received the final notification. Now, if you think about it, from 15th July all the way to 16th November, that's actually a total of 4 months of waiting, and that's exactly how long it's taken us to get the visa, which is actually, if you think about it, under standard processing times, this is really long time. So I'm going to get into actually my recommendation in a second now, but this is what I wanted to share in terms of timeline. So if you're waiting for your visa and you've not heard back and your visa is about to expire, I do want to say just hold on. Don't get too nervous. Don't get too stressed out. It's going to happen. If there are questions around your visa, they will get in touch with you. It's very low likelihood they'll just reject you unless you've done something blatantly wrong there. So just keep in mind that this is the timeline, and that's all I wanted to share here. Right, so basis of that timeline of 4 months, I do have a personal recommendation for anybody who is yet to submit their application or who submitted the application and they've been told they're eligible for the IDV app. Now, my recommendation actually is that don't use the IDV app. I think if you're really worried, I think from a health perspective and you're shielding from what's going on, then by all means I think you should use the IDV app, because you're putting yourself at risk by going for an appointment. But if you don't have any of those concerns and you really need a visa urgently, right, I think booking an appointment in person and asking for that processing mechanism for your UK visa application is the best route possible, just because the IDV app takes really long time and you just don't know what's going on with it. Now, there's 3 reasons that I'll talk about in a sec why I think you shouldn't use the IDV app. So reason number 1 is primarily because of just look at the timeline that it's taken. It's taken 4 months for a very straightforward visa application for my wife to come through. So I have an indefinite leave to remain. My wife has been on a tier 2 dependent visa since she arrived to the UK. There's been no issues with any of the documentation that we provided, yet it took them 4 months to process it. So I think just from a pure timeline perspective, it doesn't make sense to use the IDV app. Issue number 2 is once you submit the actual IDV app submission, you don't actually get anything back. So you're waiting for a notification to come through to explain to you what's happening. There's no updates. There's no way to check what the status is. The escalation mechanism is absolutely useless as well, because even though you escalate, and there is a mechanism to escalate, all they'll come back to you and tell you is your visa is in the application queue and you just need to wait for it to be processed. I mean, thanks guys. That's something I already know. So that's an issue in itself as well. And the criteria number 3, or reason number 3 as to why you should use the appointment, is actually the appointment is significantly faster. So there are stories on the internet. So people have been sharing their timelines similar to as I'm sharing with my wife's visa application for their indefinite leave to remain or other stuff. Now you have to pay £120 for that appointment, in-person appointment. But that's kind of like paying for a priority service, if you know what I mean. And there is a story that my wife found where somebody had submitted the indefinite leave to remain, done an appointment, and they got the indefinite leave to remain processed in 3 days. I mean, 3 days versus 4 months. Like, what would you choose, right? I mean, anybody who's done a UK visa application or just a visa application knows how stressful this is. And you should definitely go for the appointment if you're in need for this visa. So that's all I wanted to share on this particular video. I hope it's helped you out. And if it did, please smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe. I do a lot of videos on immigration, personal finance and other topics, all based on life in the UK. And I'm just trying to help anybody else out there who's in a very similar position to me or is experiencing any challenges with it. So any support is really appreciated and the channel grows through that. So that's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks guys. Bye.